Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. From the last time I posted where I took the car for a spin to see how everything felt like with the new G-braces, I came back home and in the driveway I was smelling a strong odor of gasoline. I had just filled up the tank, but it was more odor than usual. So I pulled it in the garage, and sure enough, you can see here, it was leaking from the tank. I looked it up. I figured it was just overspill, but it's not. It looks like either from the filler neck or from the seam, it's leaking gasoline. So I figured it wasn't good. So I went down to the local O'Reilly and ordered a replacement gas tank. I didn't want to go full-on stainless tank mode because in the long run, I do have plans of upgrading to a turbocharged fuel-injected Pontiac engine. So I wanted to do a proper fuel-injected tank at that time. But until then, I just figured I'd go and just buy a replacement tank. So this is what I got. It's a Precision, whatever. It was 145 bucks from O'Reilly, no shipping or anything. So and it looks like it's a pretty decent tank. So today I'm just gonna jack it up and see if I can remove the tank, and then underneath it I gotta clean the underneath because it has some surface rust I want to take out. But for now I'm just gonna jack up the car. I can't drive it on the ramps because the floor is so slippery, smooth, that the ramps are not staying. So I'm just gonna jack it up, put it up on the ramps, and then start taking out the tank. All jacked up, ready to go. I'll get started shortly. Here underneath the tank, you can see how fuel was spilling, leaking out. So we weren't gonna take a chance with anything. Inside, we'll bring the light. A little crusty underneath it. It's a New England car all its life. There is no rot, but there's some rust. This is a chance to take the tank out, clean the underneath. The floor, the trunk pan is in good shape. It's not rotted out, just down here. So I bought this from a friend of mine back in 1990, and at the time he was using this as his daily driver. So I kind of rescued it from him, and it's been garaged ever since. But over here you can see all the bushings and the springs, leaf springs are gone. I've already, as I've said in the big brake upgrade, I've ordered the new suspension package from Pro Touring F-Body. So when that comes in, all this is going to be replaced too. And you can see the back of the Corvette brakes. Right now it does have Koni shocks, and it's going to be replaced with the new suspension. But for now, I'm going to start taking it all apart. Hopefully it'll come out easy. So these ones are 3/8. I broke them free. They came out. So I'm just going to loosen them up a little bit here. And this one over here, this one came out fairly easily too. Broke out fairly easily. So undo those. So after spraying quite a bit of blaster on it, actually, believe it or not, those two bolts came loose, and I just put the jack stand underneath the tank so they won't fall. So I'm just gonna keep loosening those and then loosen up the fronts. Hopefully the tank will drop relatively easily. I gotta make sure I don't forget the ground wire. Take that one out too, and then the tank should be out. So I was able to get the bolts out of two straps. I loosened up, I took out the ground wire, and the last thing we got left is the wire for the sending unit. It goes through a grommet through the harness in the trunk. I gotta take that out so I don't damage any wiring, and then hopefully the tank will come out fairly easily. I'm gonna over here. Inside here is this connector here. I gotta take out, and then it goes through that grommet in the trunk to the sending unit. So let's see how I can take that out. So after disconnecting that connector, it just pulled out. I pushed in the grommet from the top, and so the wire can come out, and then I'm gonna go back and slowly lower the gas tank little by little. I have my jack underneath it, and it's out. I'm just gonna drag it out and drain whatever's left in it, and then see if I can take the sending unit out, and then call it a day. Probably start scraping underneath, and I mean underneath the trunk pan over the gas tank, and then there's a new tank over there. Put the new tank back in and call it a day. But I don't think it's gonna happen today. Some other day, probably tomorrow. Back underneath the car, so you can see over here, it's some surface rust. It looks bad, but there's no rot, there are no holes, just surface rust all the way to the frame rail. Right now I'm just gonna take this little scraper and get the big scales out, and then I'll take the wire wheel to it. So I took a lot of the big scales out. So here we are, we can get the wire wheel and get to it. So after wire wheeling it, looks like the driver's side has the worst. You can see some holes here, but the rest of it, the sheet metal going all the way down the other end, there are no holes. I just cleaned with the wire wheel, and now I'm going to use that rust dissolving gel that I got from the local parts store. It's Permatex. So I'm just going to wipe that on for a little bit, let it sit, wipe it with a wet rag, and then once it dries up, I'm just going to start painting it. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Just use that rust dissolver and go from there. Just put some large trash bag on the ground so it doesn't mess up the floor. Someday I'll do the floor. I'm gonna paint it or tile it, I don't know yet, but for now I don't want to get anything more than I have to on it. So while the gel was doing its thing, I took out the gas tank straps. The driver's side just popped right out. The passenger side, the side gave me a little fight. I think it was stuck in there pretty good. Although they're in relatively decent shape, just surface rust. I bought a pair of stainless gas straps, so I'm gonna put those in once I get everything painted. The gas tank, this is the old sending unit. Again, it's okay, but I figured with a brand new tank, it's in this box, I got a brand new sending unit to go with it. And then I also got some new bolts for the gas straps, and then the rubber strips to keep the tank from rubbing against the body and the straps. So once I do the painting, I'll come back and start putting these things together. So we'll continue on. Here it is. Didn't come out perfect, but it's still okay, better than before. So this is what I'm gonna use on the car.
It's a Duplicolor rust barrier. I picked it up from the local O'Reilly's.
So I just did where I could reach with the brush with that rust barrier paint. So a few hours later, the paint is completely dried up. So I'm gonna use this Duplicolor primer. It's the red oxide one. It's not a perfect match to the original, but for now it'll do. So here we are back. I cleaned up and painted underneath the car. So this is the gas tank that I picked up from O'Reilly, and the sending unit that was from Firebird Central. It's not an exact reproduction of the factory stock one. Is the stock one goes and rides along this seam, but for a driver, I'm not looking for 100% accurate reproduction. So, and these are the noise suppressors, or whatever you want to call them, that goes between the tank and the body, and then there's another pair for the straps. So right now we're setting it up so we can put it in the car, where I cut the original vent line from the old tank so I can run it along here, because this is how the replacement tank, they stop it here. So we're just setting everything up right now. In a few minutes we're going to install the tank. So here's the tank installed under the car. As I've said before, the straps I got were flat bottom, so, and they were stainless, so I didn't want to bend and modify them to make them fit. Even though they're supposed to be for 74, 75 tank, they weren't. So I reused the old ones since they were not rotted. They were in pretty good shape, so I reused them. These are the new quieting strips that I got with it. The red oxide primer wasn't exactly red oxide. It was orange oxide, more like it, but it does the work. Some of the things I didn't like about the OER sending unit, ground wire wasn't exactly long enough, so I had to cut and extend the ground wire. It's for a $75 sending unit. They could have added like 8 inches more of ground wire to make it work, but whatever. I did use brand new bolts from the hardware store. They're grade 8s. Again, the reproduction bolt kit for the gas tank wasn't exactly the right one. It was like 4 inches long. I don't know why. There's no room for it in the back for 4 inches of bolt to go through. Back here, this is what we ended up with. The sending unit, the feed and return were so different than the original that it wasn't gonna mate up with the existing feed lines and return on the car, so we had to cut it here, both of them, and run hoses to meet up with where the factory pipes are here. Since those were rubber hoses, I didn't trust them being so close to the exhaust, so I got some heat wrap from the local parts store. It's a DEI heat wrap. This way I didn't have to take the hoses back out again, because they're in pretty good. It opens up and it's Velcro, and you can wrap it around the hoses and then Velcro it shut. So that's what I did. So it works out pretty good. And then finally, the one thing I didn't like about the tank itself was the vent line only came down to here, whereas the original went all the way to where it meets with the vent line and on the car. So what I had to do is cut the factory vent pipe here, and then get a piece of hose and connect it there. So that's pretty much it. You can see here, this is a 3-inch exhaust, and it's pipes exhaust with the Race Pro mufflers on it. So that's why it's so close to the tank. It's not the factory exhaust. So that basically is it. The only thing I gotta do is come up with some sort of a bracket here. You can see the hole for the bracket to connect the pipes so they can stay in their place. But other than that, done. The only other thing I gotta show you is the gas cap. Let me just go on top. The filler neck on this tank was slightly different than the original. So you had the original gas cap would have worked. So I had to use one of those newer style plastic tank caps. The head of the filler neck is different from the original. The original had a different style, and so the original cap was not going to work because it was totally different. Let me see if I can find that so I can show you the difference. This is the factory gas cap. The neck is different, so these tabs would go around the neck and lock it in place, whereas here there's nothing for the cap to go on, so it will just, so it's not going to work. So that's why you have to get this gas cap. Again, it's not my favorite because it just is not period correct, but you know, like I said, for a driver, to keep me going for a couple of years until I start the fuel injected engine, this will do. So that's it for the gas tank. It's getting winter here, so I'm probably not gonna be able to take it out for a spin. But I got a couple other projects going. These are front and back brakes. I got a 2000 Excursion that needs front and back brakes. Probably gonna pull it in the garage in the next few days. Do that one. Also, it's gonna need fluid flush. So I'll be doing that, posting that video possibly. And here it is, the Vintage Air kit for the Trans Am. That's gonna be another winter project that I'm gonna be working on, and I'll post those. And then, let's see, there's some more on the Excursion. Underneath there, hidden as a sway bar from a 2005 Excursion that I'm gonna retrofit into my 2000 because mine didn't have it. So there are some projects there, and then probably gonna put bigger tires and wheels on it because my son wants a set of bigger tires for the Excursion. So I'll be posting some videos on that one. So again, thanks for following this. Thanks for watching it. I appreciate it. And I'll be posting some more videos down the road. Thank you very much.